off with, to access simultaneous translation. You simply need to glide your mouse or your finger across the screen to that little globe at the bottom of the page, then click on the globe and choose the language that you would like to listen to. You don't need to switch this, just turn it on the language you'd like to listen to, and it will stay there throughout. Bienvenue à toutes les personnes participantes à cette session d'apprentissage de la 44e Conseil général de l'Église unie du Canada. Pour accéder à la traduction simultanée, il s'agit de glisser votre souris ou votre doigt sur l'écran pour voir le petit globe en bas de page. Cliquez sur le globe et choisir la langue dans laquelle vous voulez écouter. Bonne réunion. And so we begin tonight. We begin tonight, as we often begin, with some time to stop and some time to think and some time to remember. We've been talking about the weather in our chat space. And I would invite you to take a moment to think about the air that is around us, and the sun and the rain. To think about the land upon which you are sitting or standing, where you live and you work. To think about the water that fills our bodies, that covers the world, and all of the life that exists on it and in it and under it and over it, of which we human beings are one part. As we remember that we are part of this connection of life, we also remember that there have been people who have been part of this land upon which you are living and upon which I am living for tens of thousands of years, long before my ancestors came to these shores. The First Nations of this land, of these lands. The First Nations of these lands have been part of this land for time immemorial. The stories that have been told, the teachings that have been given are part of this land as much as the land is a part of the peoples. When Europeans came to this land, we brought with us colonial ways. And those ways did damage to the people of this land, and in fact, continue to do damage with broken relationship and broken promises. As we recognize the territory and the people, we need to recognize that we are part of an institution that has deep colonial roots. And that requires us to be even more a part of the solution, or the solutions, or the good ways, the right relationships. We need to be people of truth and reconciliation and reparation. So I would invite you to take a moment to recognize upon whose lands you live and work and play now, and to take a moment to recognize what our collective responsibility is for the work of right relations today and in the days to come. And may God be with us in this important work. Shall we continue our time together with worship? I would invite us to have our call to worship at this time.
We come from where we are and know that we are called to this community in this time with deep spirituality and bold discipleship, and for daring justice, we come to receive what is offered. We pray that we might be present in this time, that we may be brave, that we may be bold, and we may be blessed. Thanks be to God.
Jesus went on with his disciples to the villages of Caesarea Philippi, and on the way he asked his disciples, "Who do people say that I am?" And they answered him, "John the Baptist, and others Elijah, and still others one of the prophets." He asked them, "But who do you say that I am?" Peter answered him, "You are the Messiah." And he sternly ordered them not to tell anyone.
Jésus s'en alla avec ses disciples dans les villages de Césarée de Philippe, et il leur posa en chemin cette question. « Qui dit-on que je suis? » Ils répondirent, « Jean-Baptiste, les autres, Élie, les autres, l'un des prophètes. » « Et vous, leur demanda-t-il, qui dites-vous que je suis? » Pierre lui répondit, « Tu es le Christ. » Jésus leur recommanda sévèrement de ne dire cela de lui à personne.
Your love is amazing, steady and changing. Your love is a mountain, firm beneath my feet. Your love is a mystery, how you gently lift me when I am surrounded. Your love carries me. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Your love is surprising, I can feel it rising, all the joy that's growing deep inside of me. Every time I see you, all your goodness shines through. I can feel this God song rising up in me. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Amazing, your love is amazing, steady and changing. Your love is a mountain, firm beneath my feet. Your love is a mystery, how you gently lift me, and when I am surrounded, your love carries me. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Your love makes me sing. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Your love makes me sing. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Your love makes me sing. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Here we go. Your love makes me sing. Hallelujah.
Unmute to start speaking. I did that. Okay, you can hear me now. Excellent. Thank you, everybody. Welcome. It's great to have you all here. I would like to thank you in advance for extra patience with me. You may, some of you who have been to these before may notice that I am in a different location. I am in Red Deer setting up the AV for the Chinook Winds Regional Council General Meeting, taking a little break from setting all that up, borrowing like a loaner laptop, so one that I'm not using all the time, found a little corner in the church. Hopefully I have all the stuff I need in my head next to me. My audio is going to be mediocre. I'm horribly backlit. I'm trying to keep my head in front of all the lights and like at the right level so that it doesn't blind you. It will be what it will be. So thank you for your patience with me. And thank you for making the time to come and join us and be here with us for this evening, no matter where you're coming from, no matter what weird things you were doing. Thank you for coming. Thank you for joining. It's great to have all of you here, all 150, 60 plus of us. It's fantastic. A reminder, folks, that this session, this learning session is for questions for clarification. And so please bring your questions, ask your questions, but we don't want to or need to get into our opinions and our comments. We're saving that for the discussion sessions. That's when it will get recorded. That's when the whole group can kind of dig into stuff. And so we want to share our opinions or questions, or our opinions, changes, that kind of stuff for the discussion sessions. Also want to encourage folks, as you're thinking about your question, if you've asked lots of questions before, if you see lots of people with their hands up, maybe wait. We want to hear some different people, different voices as we can. We want to make sure if you have a question, ask it. Don't not ask. But if you're able to just wait and see, that's fantastic. Oh, good. My notes went all the way to the top. What else I got here? Also, you can put your questions. If you think of one as we're going, if we pass that proposal, you can put it in the feed loop Q&A section as well. So it's great if you want to ask it real time, feel free. If you kind of think of a question, you want to throw it in the feed loop chat, we're doing our best to get answers in there too. So that's a absolutely great place to ask and put your questions as well. We're going to ask. I'm going to try and keep slow. I'm excited. I got lots of things going on. I can talk fast. I'm sorry. I just felt myself ramping up. We're going to ask in this session, if you can please raise your virtual hand in order to ask your question. So the chat is just talking to the person next to you at your table. We're not paying a lot of attention. I'm barely going to keep up with the video and unmuting myself the correct way this time. So not paying attention to the chat in Zoom. So please raise your virtual hand. You can do that by moving your mouse over the video or touching your screen and find the reactions and then raise hand. You might have to hit the 3 dots in the more button first. Okay, I think we're there. I think that's stuff I'm supposed to say. Oh, I'm muting. So if you're going to ask a question, raise your hand. Then we're going to, if your video is on, then we can spotlight you and put you up so we can see you and folks can see your name. If your video's off, we can't actually see even the name or your picture or any of that stuff. But don't feel you have to turn your video on, just so you're aware. And then we'll ask you to unmute yourself. So we're just doing it that way to make sure that we don't get any unwanted noise. Okay, that's it. Richard mentioned the interpretation. Make sure you pick the language you want to listen to for the whole time, because folks are welcome to speak English or French as they choose, and we want to make sure that you understand what's going on. If you don't pick English or French, you will just hear whatever people are speaking. Okay, that's all my notes. I hope that's enough. Okay, our first proposal is GS08, climate justice. And I believe I'm inviting Beth, Laura, and Tony into the spotlight with me, Tony Snow. So if those folks can join me in the spotlight. And I don't know if it's just me, but I think I've got some kind of weird noise going on in my computer. So I'm hearing some really faint voice talking all the time. And just, I don't know if other folks are hearing that. I don't know if it's just me. Other folks are hearing it too. Cool. I don't know where that's coming from, but it's amazing. And so let's just enjoy that weird little voice that we're hearing faintly in the background somewhere. I don't know. Let's ignore that. And I don't know, Tony Snow, if you're here. I don't know that we've found you yet. If you want to raise your hand, we'll make sure that you get in here as well. There was a Tony, but we weren't sure if it's the right Tony, or if you're in under a different name. So I just want to check that too. Otherwise, folks, if you have, so Laura, Beth, I don't know if either of you have anything you want to say. We're assuming that folks have watched the videos, read the proposal, and so we just want to get questions for clarification. But if you have had a question that you're aware is out there that you wish to respond to here, or anything quick you wish to say before we ask people if they have any questions, giving you a chance now.
Tony Snow is here, so hopefully, and he is in as Tony Snow, so hopefully they can find him. There is a question in Feedloop that asks if the 2019 sustainability report is the most current report on progress towards our climate change goals. And the answer is yes, but we're expecting to be doing a biannual one that will come out later this year. So that's the answer to the question. Another fun answer to the question is, and I'll throw this in the chat, is that Faithful Footprints is quarterly updating the projects that they are supporting. And so there's a really cool dashboard that shows in real time the difference that the projects are making. So I will put that in the chat, and that's an additional answer to the question of how we're measuring some of these things.
Cool, thank you. I don't know if we're finding Tony and getting Tony in here with us too. Also, I'm going to see if anybody has questions. So if you have questions about good to see you, Tony. GS08, climate justice, please raise your virtual hand now. And you don't have to have questions, but if you do, please feel free to ask them. This is the time. Like I said, you can keep throwing them in the feed loop, Q&A. As you have learned, people read that, and I've already been answering your questions. So that's legit too. I'm not seeing anybody with questions, no hands up. So I think we might be good. You folks have done a wonderful job explaining everything, which is much appreciated. Your video, fantastic. Proposal, great. No questions for clarification at this point. Love it. Thank you for making the time and joining us, because we never know. We get questions on stuff. We don't get questions on stuff. Looks like we have no questions this morning, unless I'm missing a hand. But I think we have no questions. So thank you very much, folks. And I'm gonna hand it off to Richard for our next worship element.
So I would invite you to recognize that as we gather together in the peace of Christ. And we're going to take 5 minutes in small groups just to connect with one another and to wish each other the peace of Christ. So I hope that that you'll click on the little box if you need to that comes up to move you into a space. There aren't any facilitators for this, so we'd ask, it's going to be about 5 minutes that you're in small group. Just take that time to wish each other well, to wish each other peace, and we'll come back in 5 minutes. So, friends, peace be with you.
Est-ce qu'on a demandé les francophones de rester ici? On peut donner le pain l'une à l'autre, là? Je ne sais pas.
Oui,
Oh,
je m'excuse.
Oh, we can we get us unmuted in here now? Because we're going to try and pass the piece in here. Can we like unmute folks? Yeah.
Alors, bonjour, francophones. Et que la paix soit avec vous, mes amis, et que vous soyez dans la paix du Christ.
Après, Christ, avez-vous aussi, Eric? Je pense qu'on peut débarrer le micro maintenant, si on veut.
On peut maintenant allumer les micros si les gens veulent le faire, oui.
Mais je ne vois pas là, mais si tu veux ouvrir le micro, c'est là, disponible.
Oui.
Pas ici, mais pas trop long.
Non.
Alors, prenez l'opportunité si vous en voulez.
Peut-être que tous les francophones se sont déplacés dans les petits groupes.
Ouais, je pense qu'on a oublié de dire de rester ici si on veut, mais...
Ça se peut, oui.
On peut saluer l'un l'autre, partager la paix quand même.
Ben oui, ben oui. Parce que je regarde la liste des gens qui sont dans la pièce pour l'instant, puis je ne vois pas de francophones. Fait que je pense qu'ils sont tous partis.
Ben, ça va.
So peace be with you all who are actually here, who are Anglophones too.
You sure we want to do that? No, I'm kidding. Of course. Peace to us all.
Only to me, not to you, Alan.
Oh, okay. That's probably for the best, really.
You're my hero.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it's I could actually use any piece that folks want to share. Peace of mind, calm. I got a lot of
Send
sense.
your piece. I have a kitty. I have a kitty on my lap. She's hiding in there. Every time when I sign on to Zoom, she must come.
Sometimes these animals know what's going on and just want to come and be part of it all.
It's true. She's really the one that wrote my whole doctoral, presentation book, whatever.
Yeah, it's a good thing you had her around then.
I know. She's bright, brilliant even. Well, I hope you have a good party in Red Deer.
Yeah, thanks. I hope we do too.
Yeah.
It can be nothing but fun, I'm sure. It's a church meeting.
Sure.
It's nothing but
of
fun.
Course.
This is why I do them all.
We're going to Prince George. Like, this is my first road trip to Prince George ever. It's pretty exciting.
It is going to be super exciting. Can't wait for Prince George either. Oh yeah, you betcha.
Okay, good.
I'm not paying any attention to time, but whatever. Anthony, just don't forget to bring people back someday. And I hope this is being streamed too, because I want everybody to know my random conversations that I have in here.
We want to hear you.
I'm fine, but I'm getting all kinds of feedback.
Muted, friend.
No, I'm unmuted.
You are, Ben.
I am having trouble.
If you go to the lower left corner on Zoom, you should see a microphone.
Oh, now they're muted. That was fun.
It will unmute you.
Yeah, I've done that, but I'm having problems. Problems.
Well, peace of Christ to everyone. It would be
Amen.
lovely to meet you all.
To all.
Perfect.
Have a good meeting, everyone.
Yes.
Okay.
Take care, everybody. Nice chatting, Brent.
Bye.
Time to mute.
Nice lip reading, more.
Okay, we got everybody coming back. We are going to lock all the microphones again. So it should just, you're stuck with me again. I'm sorry, but that's the way these things work. Y'all get stuck with me all the time. Okay. I think we're muting everybody as they come back, and then we're going to lock the microphones again so that as much as I want to hear your cat walk across your keyboard, because it provides entertainment value, it does make the meeting go a little slower as we sort that out. So we'll just not do that. I'm just gonna, looks like we got everybody back. I think we got everybody muted again. It was indeed a lovely time, even for us who stayed here. And it is always too short. We never have enough time for chatting. Why? Because we love to chat. I don't know. Okay, I'm going to invite into the spotlight with me again, Eric Matheson. We're going to do GCE07. So Eric's going to join me for two proposals, but we're going to start with GCE07. Eric, do you have anything you wish to say, respond to questions or anything before we see if anybody has questions for you?
Yes, just a quick overview. I know that people have had a chance, hopefully, to review the proposal and the video, but this is a very technical area. We've tried to write it in a way where it answers the kind of questions that congregation members might ask, that church governors might ask, and still cover insurance professionals as well. So what I'd like people to know is that there's a very solid business case behind this proposal in terms of the numbers and the risks, but that it isn't without risk. And the other comment I would make is that it's intended to provide significant savings to our congregations and to any of our entities that pay insurance premiums, but it's not guaranteed. It's still the issue of claims that could happen. And the other point I would make is that once we have this flexibility, if the proposal proceeds, it still has to be run like an insurance, like it still goes to a claims adjuster. They still apply all the rules. There's still going to be rules around having a vacant building and those kinds of things. It still has to be like an insurance business. We just have more say on the design and participate in the risk.
Great. Thank you, Eric. We got questions already. That's fantastic. I'm going to go to Audrey first. So we'll get you in the spotlight, and then we're going to ask you to unmute, and then you can ask Eric a question.
My question is very simple. When I was reading through the proposal, there was a lot of emphasis on buildings. So what about our congregations that are renting space and contents only? Some congregations rent space for Sundays only, but we have others who are renting space. So are they being considered in the program as well?
To be very honest, it hasn't been a focus because we don't believe that that's where the huge premium increases have been coming from. But it would be a very straightforward manner. And in fact, any folks that are already covered have that kind of insurance would automatically be included. But this proposal was driven by the fact that lots of people have seen 50 to 100% increases.
I've been doing some finance work with a local congregation who are paying more for their contents insurance than some places are paying for building and contents. Mm-hmm. So it was one of the questions that popped up for me right away. Thank you so much.
What did I do? Okay, then I'm back. And I unmuted myself. Cool. Next question from Kathy Yamashita. So we're going to get Kathy spotlit with us and then ask to unmute, and then you can ask your question.
Hi, Eric. It's Kathy Yamashita from Lethbridge, Alberta. I'm just wondering about the unfortunate use of that word captive in this proposal. What does it mean?
It is very much a technical insurance term. It's just perhaps an unfortunate choice of words, but the idea is that the whether it's an entity, in this case us, that we have some control over things that we wouldn't otherwise. And so it's a standard term in the insurance sector to say I have a captive insurance entity.
Cool. Okay. Thanks, Kathy's nodding. I think we're good there. Thank you. Anybody else? Penny has a question. So we'll get you here, ask you to unmute, and then you can ask your question.
Thank you. Hi, Eric. It's Penny Culverson from Peterborough, Ontario. I just wondered, does it cover groups also that previously, I think, have been covered, like the UCW within the church?
Yeah. Yes, the short answer is yes. There are no takeaways in this insurance, other than it is reducing things like brokerage commissions and that kind of thing. That's how it comes about.
Wonderful. Okay. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Penny. Peter.
I have 3 questions, but I'm only going to give you 2. Has there been a solid business plan put into place, or that is the next step? I realize you aren't going to start it until 2025, which I think, and the reasoning for that, I follow, and I think that's sound, because we have to find out how much of a damage COVID's going to do it. And I was very curious to know how much money it's going to take to put this thing into place and get it going.
Mm-hmm. So Peter, I think some of your comment might relate to the other proposal with regard to assessment rates and so on. The insurance proposal itself, if approved, would basically take effect in December of this year. I have to allow for the fact that it might not get approved, so we can't move it any faster than that. But if the General Council were to approve this, then congregations participating already in the affinity program would be enrolled in this in December and be offered premium reductions right away. And ideally those would continue through the triennium, where basically there might be modest inflationary increases, but a significant decrease right away. I'll talk a little bit more about the other proposal, I think, if that's all right. But did that cover your question?
So you're going to need to unmute yourself again, Peter. We're going to hold the other one, Eric, if we can. I'd like to just keep questions on this one because it's confusing enough. So if you have questions on the other one, Peter, you can come back. Are you good now? Thumbs up if you've got your question kind of answered for now. Perfect. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Eric. Beth has a question here.
I have found one of the things in ministry that I knew little about 35 years ago, I still know very little about, and that's insurance. It boggles my mind. The affinity program, by that you mean Hub Insurance, the national program?
Yes, about 1,000 of our congregations all participated in it already. And with these reduced premiums, we think that many others will choose to as well.
Okay, the question I have is I read this proposal and I was going, oh, let's do something theological instead. Mm-hmm. But is this the same as self-insurance? What is referred to as self-insurance?
Yes, that is the word that I perhaps should have used instead of captive that Kathy Yamashita was calling. The captive insurance is the insurance term, but we are participating in the risk. So in that sense, it is self-insurance.
So in other words, my congregation would no longer pay premiums?
No,
or it would be part of the, like I must confess, I've come back from 2 weeks vacation and am facing, I don't know, half a dozen funerals to plan and do. And this did not get full attention, but you know what, we need to see, I need to see something sort of together.
Right.
Like, what's it going to cost? Because we pay insurance, we don't have a claim, the money just goes away.
Yeah. Well, first of all, insurance is like that. I actually spent part of my life working in the insurance field, and it's the kind of thing you hate it until you need it.
I just had a 12% increase in SGI's package policy for my car.
Yeah, exactly. So the idea here is that your congregation would continue to pay premium, but hopefully we've stopped the increases. I don't know what your increase has been, depends who you're insured with, but lots of those have as much as doubled in the last 2 years.
SGI, I'll leave the details for private discussions.
Sorry, some of the details I think that you're looking for, Beth, are in the proposal, the costing, how it'll work through. So yeah, if you have, if you can direct a little bit, Eric, that'd be great.
I just was totally confused, as I've always been, by insurance lingo, because the devil's in the details with insurance policies, always.
Yeah, so I guess the comment I would make is that the idea is that the coverages that exist and the restrictions on them and all that legal mumbo jumbo, of which there is lots, that all continues. The coverage, there's no intent for there to be a takeaway of coverage. What we do hope is that we will be able to offer more flexible arrangements for situations where you might not pay for full replacement cost when we would never replace the church as it exists today. But I'm happy to field any specific questions as you get dug out from your return from vacation.
Oh, I think my treasurer has talked to you several times.
It's okay. Eric loves getting emails from folks, so feel free to send him more questions. I'm sure. Also, you can throw them in the FeedLoop chat, or the FeedLoop Q&A, sorry. Q&A and FeedLoop. If you have questions, we'll get them there too. Thank you, Beth. Brent has a question as well.
Brent Kaslik from Western Ontario Waterways. Hello, Eric. A quick question for those congregations that are not already in the affinity program. When would they be able to join if they so wanted to?
Well, again, December is the first time that we anticipate having it available for anybody. If their renewal was December, they could enter then, or whenever their renewal is. Insurance companies typically charge a pretty significant penalty for canceling a policy partway through. So my short answer would be at their next renewal once we're up and running.
Excellent, thank you. Anybody else have questions on GCE 07? So the implementation of a captive / self-insurance mode. The slash isn't actually in there. I'm just going off what Eric said. I'm not seeing any other questions there. Cool, thank you. Okay, we're done with that one. That one's done for now. If you have more questions on GCE 07, please put them in the Q&A and FeedLoop, which is right there apparently, because I just pointed there. We're going to move on now to GS09. GS09, affirm existing assessment rates. Also, Eric is joining me for that one. Oh, welcome, Eric. It's so great to have you here so quickly. Anybody have any questions on GS09, affirm existing assessment rates? Not seeing any questions here. Eric, do you have anything you want to add off the top?
Yeah, no, just to say, this is the first time that a general counsel would be seeing something like this. It is what was part of the whole remits that we went through and the new funding model. And it basically, this proposal says, let's keep running with this and learning, particularly with the way COVID has impacted us. COVID has impacted all parts of the church dramatically, financially and every other way. And it's just too early. And we're still transitioning to the new funding model. So therefore, steady as she goes. With the caveat that the general counsel does have the option every year when it reconvenes to potentially consider something.
Cool. Thank you. I'm not seeing anybody raising their hand, virtual hands in between there. So I think we're going to be good for this one. Eric, thank you. Oh, Beth is back. Hey, Beth, you got a quick question here for Eric on this one.
But there I am. The question, now, my understanding of the current funding model, the new one, is that the income that we spend from, like, I'm trying to get my head around what changed, is that the income we earned from investments was taxed by the church rather than in a different way than the income from the plate, let's say. Mm-hmm. And it, like, my question is, what will it do to a pastoral charge who are getting, say, half of their money from the plate and half of their money from their investments? Mm-hmm. For example, I served a congregation that relied on its investments before I came here.
Well, I think you're referring to it. One of the refinements that the recall of General Counsel 43 approved last October, which was to smooth out the way we assess investment income and instead charge a relatively modest 25 basis points, which is 0.25% of the investment balance. So on aggregate, like at the level where when I add everything together, it's actually quite what we call cost neutral. At the individual level, depending on the mix of revenue sources that a congregation might have, it could move things around a little bit, but generally it smooths out the assessment on a multi-year basis for all congregations and makes it predictable.
And so that's a past thing. That's not what we're talking about here right now, Beth. This is affirm the existing assessment rates. So to not make any changes to the way that the assessments are done between kind of this year and next. So not to change the rates, because this general counsel or any general counsel has the opportunity to set the rates for the next period. And the recommendation proposal is that we don't mess with that for right now. So do you have any questions on the existing rates? If you have questions about assessments, Eric loves emails. Remember, I already said that. So make sure you send him a note. But if you have a question on this proposal around assessment rates right now, let me know.
Well, I just read the gobbledygook about 0.25% or whatever, and I was trying to remember arguments in trustees meetings and going, I don't understand this either.
I hear you. So I think, thank you, Beth. Appreciate your question. I think we're going to move on now. Not seeing any other questions on this one. So thank you, Eric, for joining. And remember, Eric loves emails. Just send him lots of emails. I'm going to move us now into our next worship element. Yeah, the magical folks who run the meeting are going to play that for us.
Take me as I am. Summon out what I shall be. Send your seal upon my heart and live in me. about what I shall be. Set your seal upon my heart and live in me.
Somewhere Kurt found some random musicians. I don't remember. I'll get that info. Saw that quick in the chat. I'm trying to like get back and into my position so that I'm blocking the light properly and hurting my back. Bienvenue encore. C'est un petit note que si tu n'as pas l'interprétation, je ne sais pas si ça change après le petit groupe là, mais si tu vas écouter en anglais ou français, c'est bon de choisir cette langue de l'interprétation en bas, le petit globe. Je vais inviter Gail Miller et Minnie Hornage me joindre dans le spotlight à l'instant. Thank you. And Minnie should be here in a second. Woohoo! And we'll get you so you can unmute. And again, folks will have read and watched, but if you have anything you would like to share, questions that you've heard or seen that you want to respond to right away, that's great. And other folks, if you have questions that you haven't asked yet, this is the time to raise your virtual hand by clicking the reactions and the raise hand. And Gail or Minnie, anything to say off the top?
I think just to say that earlier we saw a question on feed loop in the chat section, and there was a two-part question. It was how many residential schools there are, and I answered that in the chat function, but the second part of the question was why they weren't included in this proposal. And the answer to that is that's because we've taken seriously the directive from our Indigenous brothers and sisters and from the General Council that we ought not be running into First Nations places and offering solutions that are not based on any kind of relationship. So this was done, everything you see in this proposal is a result of a direct relationship with the Sashat Nation and rises out of that relationship of trust. So we didn't want to presume that what was needed in one location is what was going to be needed in another location or from another relationship.
Great, thank you, Gail. Any questions on PM01? Port Alberni is an Indian residential school. Because I forgot to give that full name. So PM01 is what we're talking about here, folks. If you have any questions, please raise your virtual hand. If not, you think of one in a few minutes as you're falling asleep at night, as you wake up in the middle of the night. These are when questions often come. You can put them in the Q&A and feed loop. Karen has a question.
Thank you for all the background that you provided to us. I wonder what other materials, if any, you have created together that sort of document the process that you've used and that would be might be available for other places that want to do this work. I appreciate what you said about doing it in context, but it seems like you've been learning a lot together. So is some of that documented in some way?
Minnie, do you want to? I think certainly we're each holding material. Minnie is the person who was at the lead of much of that process, and so we could develop those. Certainly, like this is how the relationship began. This is how the process went. We could provide those if people wanted those. I think there is definitely learning that happened in Alberni that is applicable across the country.
Yeah, I would just echo yes to what Gail has said, and we could create something if that would be helpful. But there's nothing no document I have that I can pull off my hard drive or something. But
great, thank you, folks. Jack has a question.
Yeah, just a quick one. It's really not about this proposal only, but about a lot of them. It used to be that proposals were costed where they could be. Is that not required anymore? And it's, I'm I noticed this proposal has some implications financially, obviously, but other ones do. What's the process? That's not part of the proposal anymore, or?
So I can give you a quick answer, and the General Secretary may want to jump in when I get it wrong. So process question, so I'll take it. So because of the way our system is working now, in the procedural motion opening, it did talk about costing and that kind of thing, and where we'll pay attention, and that it doesn't just mean we do everything and spend all the money. So there is some of that in the procedural motion. Also, because our proposals and the way we go through the discussion phase and the suggested way forward from the facilitation team can often change some of these things as well. And so it is, the actual costing isn't as straightforward as it has been at other times as well necessarily. So that's why it's not as upfront as it has been at different times in the life of the church. General Secretary, anything else you wish to add there?
Well, just to say that in a previous councils quite a while back, that used to be a standard way in which the proposal came with the, we haven't done that in the life of the church, I think, for the last 3 or 4 councils. But at the same time, there is, as Alan says, a part of the procedural motion that speaks to the financial reality of the proposals.
Okay, thank you. That's good.
Okay, thank you, folks. Joyce has a question.
Hello. Yeah, excellent presentations. Thank you. And I just had a question about a statement in number 2 of the proposal. It says that the federal government was approached for a response and certain actions, requested or expected or whatever asked for. And I just wondered, that was in June of 2021, I believe it said that the inquiries were made with the federal government, and I'm wondering if there has been any response to that from the government.
Well, what I can tell you is that we recently had a meeting with the Sashat Nation, Monday, April 25th, so just very recently. And at that point, they were ready to start talking to us about the specifics of the proposal. And so they've let us know that number 1, the offer to conduct the forensic archaeological search and the offer to remove the heirs buildings, they are in a conversation right now with the federal government. And it is their desire that the federal government actually takes responsibility for that they wouldn't be looking to the United Church of Canada for that kind of assistance. I don't know what kind of response they've had from the federal government. We didn't get into that, but I know they have asked for that kind of support. And then they were clear with us that in this proposal, what they were most interested in talking to us about was the development of a plan and a funding model for a healing center on the former heirs site. And then there were a couple of other ones that they actually weren't ready to talk about. For instance, number 2, the offer to exhume, identify, and repatriate. That's not a conversation that they've had even among their own people because the wound is still too raw. And there's a lot of stuff around that I just learned around death and how First Nations treat that might not be something that they actually want to do. And then number 5 is also of interest. So that's the update I can give you since last June.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for clarification here? Not seeing any. Thank you very much. Thank you, Gail and Minnie, for joining. It was great to have you. And keep on looking in the feed loop, Q&A, and the chat. Some people put questions in there too. And I appreciate you spending the time and answering those as well. Nous allons maintenant à GS03. Fred Brannan va me joindre pour les prochaines 2, mais on commence avec GS03. Et puis, on va demander Fred d'ouvrir son micro. Excellent. Et si tu as quelque chose à dire en avance, Fred, tu peux le dire maintenant. Et les gens, si vous avez des questions, levez votre main virtuelle, s'il vous plaît.
Et merci, Alan. Je m'exprime en français justement pour faire travailler nos interprètes parce qu'il y a très peu de personnes qui ont parlé français ce soir-ci, mais quand même, il faut être réaliste et la plupart de nos travaux sont effectivement en anglais. That's just life, and we wish we could change that, especially in my Conseil Régional here, because we'd like to very much encourage the participation of the majority of Quebec citizens in our church. However, this proposal concerns a very mundane and down-to-earth issue, which is the amalgamation of congregations. It was explained in the video, so I won't go into that, but I'd be pleased to answer any questions that people would have about this proposal, which comes from the manual committee.
Perfect. Thank you, Fred. Any questions about this one, GS03, amalgamation of congregations? I am not seeing anybody with questions here. That's fantastic. You don't need to have questions. As I have said 5,000 times, you can ask them later too. Oh, we have a question. Penny, question for Fred on GS03.
I was wondering about what happens to surplus property. Where is this in the manual?
It's dealt with in numerous places in the manual, but if you look at the sections on amalgamation, you'll see some serious references. It's up to the regional council and the regional council alone to determine whether there is surplus property upon an amalgamation. And this proposal encourages both the amalgamating parties, or all of the amalgamating parties, the congregations, to discuss what their real needs are when they do amalgamate. We're finding at the regional council level too often amalgamating entities don't really talk through the money issues and don't talk about what they really want to do once they're together. Without going too far, it's like couples who decide on their marriage without discussing who is going to contribute what and how much and when, and what they really want to do with their life together. Well, it's necessary for congregations to do that when considering an amalgamation, but it is up to the regional council to determine whether there is surplus property or not. And one of the elements of that is, what do you want to do? What do the congregations want to do? So this proposal requires that the amalgamating entities submit to the regional council their proposal about what happens to the money and what effectively they really need to do. So that will enable the regional council to make a realistic determination of whether there is or is not surplus property. If there is surplus property, the regional council decides, and probably asks the people involved, but decides how to attribute to that. Our regional council in Quebec, for instance, in Nagahaga, follows the general policy of giving 10% to the Indigenous Church, 10% to mission and service, and 10% to a kind of granting and enabling strategic fund to help the broader church, and follows the advice of the congregations with respect to the rest.
Great. Thank
Does that
you.
answer, Penny, to your question? Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you, Penny. Thank you, Fred. Just a note, that was the example for Nagahaga. Not all regional councils deal with surplus property in the same way. Just want to make sure we're all clear on that. Any other questions on GS03? Not seeing any. Thank you, Fred, for GS03. Now, magically, you're going to come back. Oh, look at you right here. GS05, discipline of members and adherents. Anything you want to say off the top for this one?
Yeah, this is a cleaning up of the manual, and it's really attempting to make this a level playing field. I know people don't like the word discipline of members because it sounds very unfriendly, but effectively there are rules about how members and adherents should behave in a church context. Presently, the manual has a kind of very court-like procedure called formal complaint that deals with how to deal with, how to resolve those type of issues. And we find that it's almost never used, extremely rarely used. We prefer that regional councils and congregations have available to them other tools like mediation, like talking it through, like discussing with each other how to fix, or how to, if you can't fix, how to deal with the problem of members who are abusive or disagree with one another. This is not about sexual impropriety. It's about not living your true role as a member of the church. So it's effectively bringing the reforms we've already brought as a manual committee to dealing with ordered ministry personnel and other people that are assimilated to that to the members of the laity.
Great, thank you, Fred. We do have a question from Dong Chun. Just be a sec here. Great.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. But I'd like to ask whether it says including supporting for intercultural ministry or indigenous ministry or other equity advance initiatives. I know there are some congregations who do not have their own the worship place and the building, just living in rental property, sharing the building. Is there any idea that you may include those, the availability to let those congregations who do not have own building to have some own building by the surplus property?
Okay. That's really, Alan, a question about the previous proposal on mergers. But if I can answer the question, really, I think that's something you really should ask your regional council. It's your regional council which determines, each regional council, and I gave the example of Nagonahaga before, but every regional council in this country has the obligation to determine surplus property, and if it has determined surplus property, has the obligation to find the best way of using that property for the United Church of Canada in its regional council. And so that's probably what your answer is, is deal with your regional council.
Great, thank you. I'm not seeing other questions on this one either, Fred. So I think, thank you. Oh, wait, I see one more. Sorry, my bad. I've been looking at too many different screens trying to see where I'm at. Jingle has a question.
I accidentally raised my hand, but since you called me, I better say something because I have the idea also of Dongshun, because I'm coming from an amalgamated church, and that amalgamated church born our community of faith. And so having said that, we are a community of faith, age 7 years old, and we're still under the roof of another church. And I believe it is good to assign a mission unit, just like us, to churches that are needing more people. And that will be helpful. Thank you.
Okay. That's very helpful. That's about amalgamations. But again, your regional council would probably really appreciate that kind of input. That's what we like.
I would just like to strengthen the statement of Dongshun. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I think that's good. So thank you, Fred. Appreciate you joining us for this. And I think that takes us to the end, close to the end of our programming for this evening. A few announcements before we close our worship. Because remember, it's all worship, right? So we're closing our worship. We're still worshiping, even as we're learning. The nominations for moderator close June 17th, I believe. Next Tuesday, there's a presentation on proposal NIC 01, restructuring of the Indigenous Church, hosted by the National Indigenous Council. May 12th, there is a partner engagement experience, as well as June 1st. You would have gotten an email, hopefully, about these other things. You can also find them on the GC44 website. Next Wednesday, yes, is the National Indigenous Church one, and then the Wednesday following, so the 18th, if all my numbers and dates in my head are correct, is the last official learning session. In the chat, you can see the upcoming optional sessions and how to find that information. So there's a link there, and it will have been sent out as well. I'm confident I remember getting it. I don't know why Dennis has. Dennis, you have a question. You have a question for clarification here as we end. Is this the case? Or are you just like saying hi? No. Okay, Dennis. Quick question. What's your question, my friend?
Hi. So I was just wondering when the dates on the Feed Loop app will be updated, especially since a lot of the dates for the events have passed. Because I get all.
A fantastic question. You have asked, and it will happen because the magical people who need to do that have heard your question, and we'll get that done. Thank you for that awareness. Please send emails and stuff too. If you notice something like that in the feed loop, just send it to the generic email address. Don't send it to me. I don't want to deal with it. Send it to the generic email address. That person would love to deal with it. I am super confident they would love to deal with it. Yeah, send it in. They'll get it sorted. We are now going to go to a word from our partners.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, and late night in Seoul, Korea. I'm the Sungbuk Park and the Ecumenical Office of the PROK, Presbyterian Church in the Republic of Korea, a long-standing partner of the United Church of Canada, and we are really delighted to be invited and to share a community with you. And our moderator, Reverend Kim Eun-kyung, will make all the necessary comments and questions right after me. By the way, she is the first female moderator in the history of the Reformed churches in South Korea. Thank you. Right now, it's late night in Korea, and we always treasure and indeed it's pleasure with the United Church of Canada to have been in partnership for such a long time. The United Church of Canada, along with its members, fought with us, prayed for us, and stood with us in the painful history, in the struggle for democracy, and right now also on the journey for peaceful unification and reconciliation of the Korean Peninsula. Right now, we are all facing the same challenge, which is called Corona-19 or COVID-19. But even in this kind of situation, in spite of this, we are all called to proclaim the message of Christ is light of the world, even during these difficult times. In the past, our partners within our faithful partnership compassionately accompanied us through in the pilgrimage for democracy and peace. And this pilgrimage seems to be still going on for some time. And we humbly request our partners and friends to stay with us, to pray with us, and also accompany us on this long pilgrimage for peace, justice, and reconciliation of the Korean Peninsula. The question I would like to draw to you is, your theme says, who do you say I am? Maybe changing it to a question, another question, what do you say church is during this time of COVID-19 and after? And I think this is a theme and a question we all need to think about, and I trust that we are going to work together on this.
Be brave, beloved. Be bold, beloved. Be blessed, beloved.
And as we go from this place, I hope that all of us will go with the not only the peace of Christ, but with hope in our hearts for the days to come. We'll see you at our next gathering. Thank you. Good night.